Hello and welcome to On the Record, a debate-style television talk show where Bahamians will find the balanced, true and open debate they've been looking for. Although done and presented in the middle of the Oban fiasco, a recent survey has the Minnis administration as losing 50% of the popularity it had last year. That's a drastic percentage compared to May 2017, when the nation gave them an overwhelming election victory. Many Bahamians are experiencing political discomfort as they are unsatisfied with the Minnis-led FNM government and totally put off with the opposition PLP, or vice versa. Other Bahamians are experiencing political discomfort because they are not in a position to speak out about their political likes or dislikes. Our guest tonight is not one of them. Politics and the thereafter thoughts of a straight shooter is our topic, and our guest is Dame Joan Sawyer, former Chief Justice of the Bahamas and former President of the Court of Appeal. She's also the first woman to ever serve in those two positions. Since retirement, Dame Joan Sawyer has been quite outspoken on matters of public interest. She is known to be a straight shooter, and tonight we look for nothing more than a dynamic sit-down with her. It's all on the record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. We're back in a moment.
Is your loved one celebrating a birthday? Or maybe they're commemorating a special occasion and you don't know what to get them? Why not get them something custom made from Executive Printers? At Executive Printers, you can create personalized calendars, greeting cards, and even playing cards just for them. A one-of-a-kind gift. They can even do personalized cups, mugs, keychains, coasters, and notepads. So come in and place an order today. We are located on Jerome Avenue South, or log on to epbahamas.com for more info.
Are you coughing, sneezing, having headaches, respiratory issues, allergies, or itchy skin? Toxic mold may be the problem. Clear Solutions Plus can help. Certified best in the Bahamas, specializing in mold removal, water damage restoration, AC duct cleaning, and more. Call Clear Solutions Plus to schedule an inspection for your home or office at 677-3138 or 427-3138. Open 7 days at the Mount Royal Plaza. Clear Solutions Plus certified mold removal. Visit our website. We are your solution to indoor air pollution.
Our guest tonight is former Chief Justice and former President of the Court of Appeal, Dame Joan Sawyer. She is the first woman to hold those two titles. Our topic is politics and the thereafter thoughts of a straight shooter. Dame Joan Sawyer, welcome to our show. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here this evening.
Thank you for having me.
You, since your retirement from the bench, you have been quite vocal, speaking out against injustices, speaking up for what is right in terms of crime, punishment. One of the things that's always intrigued me in listening to you is it seems since your retirement, you have really taken to the public stage in another way. As a reporter, many times your utterances from the bench, even at the opening of the courts, would always make news because it were, you always, even at that point, spoke to the truths and what needed to happen. But now you've taken on a different role. And why did you think it necessary to begin to speak out? A lot of judges, when they are done on the bench, they sort of just go off into the sunset and enjoy retirement.
Actually, I drifted into it more than anything else. I was really not saying anything for the first 5 years after I retired because as a Privy Councillor, I was still, quote unquote, eligible to sit as a Privy Councillor on a case if the Senior Law Lord had invited me. So during that period between age 70 and age 75, I said nothing except one interview I gave to Bahamas Handbook. That really was about my early history. I have always been concerned about injustices, even as a child. I was always what they used to call troublesome, feisty, all kinds of funny names, but I was never afraid as a child. I would answer back the oldest person, which was unheard of in those days. And I never tolerated foolishness. It's a strange kind of life. You hear it, you think I'm faking it. But there's nothing new about what I'm doing to my personality. What is new is the time I'm doing it in. I couldn't do what I'm doing now when I was on the bench because I had to exercise judicial restraint.
But so what? I'm very curious as to what was that like, having to sit on the bench for all of those years and you know
and see stuff.
Yes.
And hear stuff. And now and again, I would write a nice little letter to some people and tell them, enough. Don't go down that road. Or I say something at the opening of the session. I remember one session they were attacking the judiciary and claiming that people like me were trying to prevent somebody from filing a document. I'm in the Court of Appeal, from filing a document in the Supreme Court registry. Well, I hardly ever went to the registry. That's what the registrar is for. I'm too busy trying to do my job. And so I got up at the opening and I said, the only person who could think that you could sue a judge in his own court is an ignoramus. He didn't like that.
You
asked the question.
Yeah, no. I thank you for your honesty. That's why we invited you. The judicial system continues to be plagued by some common issues. From as early as I can remember, the opening of the Supreme Court and that charge that was given, there always seemed to be some commonalities, some common things that happened even back then. Not that I'm that old, but that continue to plague our judicial system even today.
Yeah, give me an example so I could follow you.
The backlog, for instance, continues to be a huge issue.
The backlog was created by laziness on the part of certain people and by ineptitude on the part of certain others. In 1994, 3 judges sat in the April session of the criminals assizes. That's when we had sessions. I was one of them, and Justice Thorne and Justice Sir Burton Hall was the other judge. The 3 of us were assigned to crime. And in the space of 3 months, we disposed of over 100 cases with juries. I did 5 murders in 3 weeks, 5 murder cases. But some smart aleck in the July session that year went before Justice Thorne, who was not au fait with the criminal procedure and not that he's not a practicing criminal lawyer before he became a judge, at least not to my knowledge. He's more commercial. They went before him and they applied from the Attorney General's office to quash 240 cases. And they had not read one book before they went. Because had they read the book they should have read, they would have known that you can't do that as a prosecutor, because the minute you do that, those cases are hardly ever likely to be able to be brought back, because then it becomes an abusive process. You don't do that as a prosecutor. You do not take people to court and then quash the case unless you made a mistake, like in drafting the information, and you have a fresh information to file as soon as you do that. But that wasn't what was done. And there were no arguments, there were no reasons. If the accused had done it, I could have understood it. But for the prosecutor to do it, I raised eternal you-know-what in that chambers, because I was the senior judge on that side. I went on, that's the year my mother died. My mother was not well. So I took that weekend after I'd taken the pleas on the Wednesday. I took that weekend off. And at the taking of the pleas, I had received 28 guilty pleas. So 28 cases were going to come out in one day.
And from then
and they
to
quashed
now,
those 28 that I received the guilty pleas in.
So from then to now, that single act
caused untold chaos.
Wow. Now that's interesting. I never.
But nobody would tell you that because of who the person was, because of politics.
What was the rationale and reasoning for it? I mean,
There was no rationale. There was no reasoning. Because when I came back from my casual days, and the judge, Dr. Justice Thorne, came and told me what he had done, I said, "You did what? You got to be joking. You know what a nightmare you've created?" I said, I told my archbold and I found the pages. He blanched. The blood fled from his face when I said that. Because I was angry. Not so much at him, but what it was doing to my country.
Wow. One of the other issues within the court system, it seems a lot of times it doesn't seem as if the cases are able to stick. They come to court and the case is lost, it's thrown out, even at the appeal stage. Something happens.
There are lots of things going on, and I had spoken to the then Prime Minister in 1997 and warned him that I had reason to believe that there were people who were intimidating witnesses and intimidating prosecutors. And I told him about witness protection. They did nothing. One man had come before me. These fellas had robbed him, and when the case was about to come up, they shot at his house, and one tried to torch his house. This is back in 97. This is now 2018. What has been done? You tell me. See, there's some things the judiciary, as judiciary, cannot do. That's why you have an executive and a legislative. The executive is supposed to carry out the orders of the judiciary. When we send a person to prison, we don't control them. They become parts, they become guests of Her Majesty, the executive branch of government. We don't control that. We don't even control when they come out.
And a lot of time the public blames, well, of course,
they blame the judge.
Yeah, they blame the judge.
Like, for instance, you said they don't have sufficient evidence sometimes to make the case stick. It may be that they didn't do a proper investigation. It may be that witnesses have been tampered with. And you don't know. And I've seen all of those.
So once the evidence is in front of you, the court rules on what is there.
What is there? But if the evidence isn't there, the court can't deal with it. We can't create evidence. We can't get down in the arena. We have to be above the fray. We're judges. We hold the balance.
Because you are there to protect the rights of the
rights of both sides.
Yes, as well. Yeah. I spoke to the minister when he was on the show about this myself because it concerns me. The Minister of National Security. I spoke with him when he was here. And just as recently as yesterday, I read in the newspaper 3 murder accused came to court, one of them alleging severe police brutality. And that continues to be a serious concern.
I was a young child.
Why have we allowed it just to continue, and why does it go on? I mean, it is not right. I'm sorry, but
again, you're talking to the wrong branch if you're talking about the judiciary.
Yeah.
No, the real problem is our culture and our lack of honesty, because our culture has encouraged dishonesty. It has, Mr. Sawyer. How many people do you think? There was a case called, what was the name? It's one of Kojak's fellas back in the late 70s. One of the first major drug trafficking cases. The pilot and another man were on the plane, and all the belly on the plane was taken out and was stuffed to the thing with cocaine packages. The little man was convicted, the pilot was acquitted. But there's no defense put forward for the pilot. How did that happen? The people who were responsible are still alive. Somebody should ask them that question. As a result of that, the then Chief Justice, Harvey da Costa, he invited the government to amend the law regarding the incarceration of the jury during the hearing of cases, so that the judges could have discretion to lock them up. I locked the jury twice in 2 drug cases, with convictions in both cases. I locked them up in the 3rd one. Fellow walked free. Boss Hog Benaby.
And but to my original question though, to deal with the instances of the brutality, and what impact does that have on the case?
Usually, if I have a reasonable doubt as a judge, and even as a magistrate, if I had a reasonable doubt that whether or not the police are telling the truth when they say they didn't brutalize the man, I would not admit the statement. And if that's the only evidence, I would tell the jury, if it's a jury trial, I direct you to acquit. There's no evidence. Because a confession obtained by brutality is not a reliable confession.
And that seems to happen quite a bit. Fellows will tell you that the police beat them until they said, yes, I did it, just stop. Stop beating me.
Well, I used to get even stranger stories about that. They would say that, what they would say is that this man who took the statement didn't beat me, but these other ones softened me up, and when I went before him, they tell me I better sign it. So this fella, the honest policeman, can come before the court and say the truth, but they're saying that there's somebody else who beat them. Now, whether the prisoners were telling the truth or not, I don't know, but that is what they would tell the jury.
And it seems to be a go-to in many instances too, because sometimes I wonder whether they're just saying this because they know that it exists.
Exactly. And then you have other people whose children may have complained of police brutality or police attitude, and they're on the jury. So what do you think that does? That's why I talked about the culture.
Interesting.
You got a solution?
I think that's a whole other show in many different parts.
I could believe that.
What do we need to do, though, in your opinion, to begin now to bring all of the various entities involved in crime and punishment together, so that there is more more cohesion? Because you have the police out here seemingly going after the criminals and trying to keep law and order. They're coming to the courts, being represented by their attorneys. You've got the prosecution on the other side, and then of course they're going to, if there's a conviction, etc. And then you have the government, the legislative branch, is supposed to be now bringing, or legislating things to try and get these situations under control. But it seems that everybody is off doing their own thing.
Well, let's put it this way. I always told them, when you show me a law that can make people good, I'll hear what you say about the legislative branch. Because you see, every time there's a problem, they say, oh, let's make a law. And I like to quote the Bible to them. You make precept upon precept, and nobody comes to the law justly. Because our hearts are not right. And the legislators are trying to solve a person problem or a human problem with paper. Well, when paper could solve a human problem, then people like me could go home without doing any work. It's stupid. And it's the shallowness of the thinking of the people who are supposed to be the leaders that really irritates me. Do you think that a piece of paper is going to make John Q do better? Don't you first have to catch him and then prove it before you can punish him? And what happened between birth for John Q and age 16 or 17 when he gets into trouble with to come to the big court? What happens between there? Where's the mother and father? Going to the school and rowing the teachers? Attacking the teachers? Or blaming the government for whatever they lack to do with their children? I don't understand my people. My people perish for lack of knowledge, as the scripture says. They perish because they have no wisdom, and they're not trying to get any. That's their problem. I'm not claiming to be wise. You hear how many times I quote scripture to you? That's where I go to get my guidance, not from them. I go to God, I don't go to them.
Dame Joan Sawyer, this is the perfect time to take our first break in the show. We are talking to Dame Joan Sawyer. Our topic, politics and the thereafter thoughts of a straight shooter. We're going to take our break in the show. Be sure and continue. On the Record returns right after this.
Hi, I'm Davriel, and welcome to Rev Tips, where we answer your most important Rev service questions. Today's question is, how do I set up a Rev My account? It's super easy. To create a Rev My account, simply visit www.cablebahamas.com and click the My Account icon. Next, select the Create Account option. Please have a copy of your latest statement on hand. Enter the information as it appears on the statement to the respective areas on the form. When you've finished, click Create Account to continue with the process. Once you've registered your account, you can use your username and password to check your account balance, view past statements, and pay your bill online. Your My Account credentials also give you access to Rev Go Play and all other apps within our suite. And that's your Rev Tip for this week. Thanks for watching, and be sure to join us next time.
And welcome back to More on the Record. We continue our discussion on politics and the thereafter thoughts of a straight shooter with Dame Joan Sawyer. One of the things that you hinted at in the first portion of our interview really had to do with a cultural norm for us, and that is this issue of corruption, and at all levels. I mean, we've even had a private conversation about this. The Prime Minister came under heavy criticism during his first CARICOM appearance, and more recently at CHOGM in London, when he said that, you know, the Bahamas had to be cleaned up of corruption, and it's, you know...
They said we mustn't air our dirty linen in public, in other
Right,
words.
so I want to ask you, do you think he was right in saying that on an international stage, or now on two different occasions?
You said if he's right in doing it. I'm not gonna decide right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I think he probably felt he had no choice.
Why?
Because internationally, our reputation is shot.
Do you think Bahamians realize that?
I don't think they do. They pretend that the world is what the Bahamas says it is, not what the Bahamas is. You know, one young person told me, so-and-so wants to believe that the truth is what they say, not what it is. Bahamians have to wake up and smell the coffee. They have to wake up and understand the truth. We lie too much. We steal too much. We even steal time.
Oh, I know that.
You know, we're supposed to be at lunch for an hour. We make it an hour and a half. But if the boss says anything to us, we upset.
Or we go pick up the kids on the lunch hour and then come back and have lunch.
Of course. Of course.
But do we realize the implications for a stain like that when you say that we are known internationally or around the world as being a corrupt country?
We are, and this is why the European Union and those have been so much on our backs with this blacklisting. This isn't the first time we've been blacklisted.
Or a second.
Not a second. I mean, you know. And the reason for that is very simply that the Bahamas is seen as a place where you can make shady deals or hide your your unholy gains, and without questions. And so that we are seen as still having the spirit of piracy. We're still piggybacking on what is evil in the world rather than piggybacking what is good. And at the same time we're doing that, we're saying, oh, we're a Christian nation, so-called seminal churches. I agree with Pastor Jeremiah Duncombe on that. This is a nation with some Christians in it, but far from being a Christian nation.
My grandmother.
Go ahead.
No, my grandmother used to say, "Be a lot of surprises in heaven and even more in hell."
You're telling me, because but that's why I said I can't really say whether he's right or wrong. I understand what the critics are saying when they say he shouldn't say it abroad, but I'm not sure what the milieu was that he was speaking in. I'm not sure what is happening around him, because people tend to react the way they are. And I don't know that the present Prime Minister is that much of an actor. Now, I might be able to act and pretend that everything is hunky-dory, and I'm not sure I would, because I don't want people to think I'm also a liar, you know.
So it could be a situation where it is sort of a necessary statement or necessary action, considering the things that we are
the
facing.
circumstances he finds himself in.
Interesting. One of the things that really drew a lot of attention when this administration came to office was the high-profile arraignments and subsequent charges of former ministers in the government.
Yeah, and we can't say a word more about that because the case is still pending in the court.
But what do you think it has changed?
No.
Do you think people have?
No.
Do you think it's business as usual? People still carry on?
I hang out with a lot of young people, and the young people tell me nothing has changed.
So business as usual, even at the highest, some of the highest offices.
For instance, you saw somebody got fired the other day.
What has contributed, though, to this culture, and it really gets me on the time, this culture that, you are entitled to the people's money, or you're entitled to do as you like?
You're entitled to a promotion, you're entitled to a title, you're entitled to this, you're entitled to that. We're not entitled to anything. God has given us life. Be grateful and then try and do your best. But that was the culture that was bred in us.
When you say bred,
when I say bred in us, I would go back to 1967. I call that this watershed year.
Majority rule.
Well, not so much.
No, sorry.
When they were 1818 and the first election. That first, between 1967, January and April 1968, Sir Cecil Wallace Whitfield was my immediate boss. And I saw a man of honor there. I'm not talking about anything, what I saw. I talk about his public persona. He made a statement that he found was incorrect, and he went and he apologized to his junior. He said, I have to be bigger now than so-and-so. I have to make sure I apologize. And he used to go out in his car and drive all through the Grove, because we had no lights, street lights and things like that. And by the end of his first year in office, there were street lights all through those areas. Okay? And he used to come back, and I used to type them up from his tape recording for the Director of Public Works and them to get on it and get it done.
You said a watershed moment. What would you say happened?
He was all for Bahamianization, but not at the expense of character. Some of us for Bahamianization at any cost. So people were getting promoted because of who they say they voted for. In fact, somebody once accused me of being UBP because I told them they were bragging that they were PLP, and now that the PLP in power, they don't have to work. And I said to them, sweetheart, you should just have to work. I said, because you're black and the government is black. And if you don't work, then you're not helping your government. That makes sense?
Very much so.
But they couldn't see that. They still can't see it. They think that because they're Bahamian, they have a right to a job. The Haitian or half Haitian child or the half Jamaican or half Chinese comes here, goes to school, half Indian. They do whatever they want to do. They have to do to excel. And then they get the best jobs. And they say, but who? They ain't Bahamian? What did you do to prove that you were entitled to that position? Because you were born? Whoop-dee-doo.
Now that we have examined really where we are in terms of this whole corruption or spirit of corruption,
yeah.
How do we begin to reverse that? How do we begin to change that? Because I always like to talk about solutions. We all know what the problems are. But I like to look at down the road and what do we need to do as a people and as individuals to begin to turn this around?
Well, as an individual, what I always did because of my grandmother's training, if somebody offered me a gift, I would say no thank you. I also remember the first time I was supposed to be the lawyer helping with the oil exploration licenses for Getty Oil and a couple of the others. I would not accept lunch from them. I would not accept a pen from them. And you know what they said after I left and went to Central Bank? They let their licenses expire and then renew them. They respected me, they trusted me. That's amazing, isn't it? but it's how we individually conduct ourselves. That's the trouble. There's no across-the-board solution, and it usually should start in infancy. That is where training starts. But when you have a mother at 28 as a grandmother, a woman at 28 as a grandmother, what is the training for the newborn? Those are things I saw from my time on the bench as a magistrate and as a judge. We're dealing with a problem that the Christian churches did nothing to correct.
What do you mean?
Instead of people now, there's some Christian people, Christian ministers who I know, like I think of Reverend C.W. Saunders. He made a comment, and I think it was a speech he gave about how this young girl came up to her. She was pregnant and wasn't married, and she asked him if he can congratulate her, and he told her, the truth.
No, I can't. I can only imagine what that truth was.
But if we had more men like that in those positions, telling these young girls, this is not the way, don't walk that way, we might not have had such a great problem. But you have politicians who encourage it. There was one politician who said, we don't have enough people, you need to have as many children as possible. He's no longer with us. The same one who said, all for me, baby. So you follow where I'm coming from.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Oh, wow.
The police used to call me yes.
Wow.
I have a very heavy voice.
No, that was completely out of a show of respect.
I know.
We are...
Do you think there's some places who say they have parenting courses? Parenting courses when? How can the state take over the homes of every individual and run it?
But the expectation is the government should be looking after you and taking care of you, your children, or your grandchildren. I need the government too, and I want a government this, and where's the government?
That's why I told you. That's why I said that these people, they blame the government, and I blame the government myself, because they encourage this attitude of dependency. When a woman in Exuma wants a fridge, she calls her representative and says, I need a fridge.
Election government.
So that man is your husband? Or your father?
Interesting points. I mean, but it feeds back into something that has been going on from the 60s and the 50s. I mean, you read back, and I think possibly even before that, I would have read, mailboats would go to the islands with food and
it was always there.
Things, yeah.
I tell people I don't know why the Lord allowed me to be born when I was born, and then to be born into the circumstances in which I was born, but because of how I was born and my circumstances as a very young child, I saw a lot of things and I appreciated a lot of things long before I was 9 years old. Because I don't know if you remember the case when they were trying to bring all those election court cases, because some people would say they lost very narrow. This is 1983, E02 election, 93. I was the lawyer assigned to represent the returning officers, who was generally civil servants or lay people, right? And I was told that what I was saying to the judges was wrong. And I said to the person, I'm not going to change what I say, because what I say is what the law provides. I don't understand what you're saying. That's not what the law says. And I stood my ground. But the judges ruled the way I submitted they should rule. But that person was saying that because they had lost.
Is there and has there been a high level of political interference in the work of the judiciary?
No, not on my watch. I once wrote a certain person who got up and, well, I could say who the person was, but I prefer not to call the name. The person encouraged some scalawags to demonstrate against my court's judgment as president of the Court of Appeal. I wrote them and I told them, look, I assume you don't know any better. But if you do it again, you will be a guest of Her Majesty. I wasn't playing. I wasn't playing. Because people must understand that the only thing the judiciary has going for it is public respect. This is why I don't appreciate this latest nagging at well and when they're going to appoint a Chief Justice. Leave it alone.
Really? I had that as a point later. Why do you say leave it alone?
Because who is speaking? Who are they to say? What do they know that I don't know? What do they know that you don't know? Who are they to determine when the Chief Justice should be appointed? You have an acting Chief Justice so that the post is not empty. Are they saying that he is incapable? No. Are they saying that somebody else should be there? No. What are they saying? Confirm him? Who are they to say that he should be confirmed? Whichever way you go, you're wrong. Stay out of it. And to hear magistrates talking about it, I got annoyed. Because they called me, Mr. Roll called me, and I told him, stay out of it. Leave it alone. Because I know of cases when I was in the Attorney General's office where Sir Dennis Malone, he's now deceased, and Telford George is now deceased. But they both distinguished jurists from the Caribbean who helped the Bahamas at a certain point. Sir Dennis Malone had been Chief Justice in a couple of the islands. When I can't remember the name of the Chief Justice who retired because he reached age 67. But Sir Dennis Malone was appointed to act as Chief Justice. Do you know why he was appointed to act as Chief Justice? Because he didn't want the position of Chief Justice. He'd already been Chief Justice twice, and he didn't want it. But he was prepared to hang in there because then they approached Chief Justice Telford Georges, who would agree to do it. You see what I'm saying?
I completely understand.
And so why are you saying that the person who's presently acting is incapable of holding the judiciary together? What are you saying? Be careful of words. They have meanings. And be careful of the message that you send.
Do you think it's politically motivated?
I know it's politically motivated. And I'm not sure where the politics start in it either. The graduate had a nice letter in the Tribune or the Guardian day before yesterday about it, warning them about Macbeth. I read it. I usually read the graduates' letters. Him and Simon on the front porch. I like to read them because they speak at. They usually write at a higher level. You know, I don't know who it is. I don't know his identification, but I thought he did a nice job of telling them, be careful, leave it alone. Because the more you stir it, don't you see what you're doing to the judiciary?
It becomes more. It becomes.
They become the
yeah.
football.
And why, I guess, it's important, to explain, why is it that the judiciary really should be free to do, to do what it is that they are supposed to do or mandated to do? Why, you would have written a letter to a politician to say, cease and desist to this public criticism. Why is it that
is so important?
Yeah.
It is important because when all else fails, the judiciary has to hold the balance. We can't be aligned to anybody. There's some judges who might have said that they were politically aligned. I have not been. And I let them both know I don't take sides. Politically, that's your business. But when it comes to judiciary, we're independent. You can't touch us as long as we behave ourselves, and we can do our job. And you can't tell me how to do my job.
Good point. There are some bills to be dealt with in Parliament that speak to the proceeds when it comes to
proceeds of crime.
Proceeds of crimes, politicians, senior government officers. If passed, I think it will give them the right to confiscate anything that these groupings are unable to explain how they got. We've heard some politicians are possibly up in arms because it may be retroactive.
I'm not sure that you can make a criminal statute retroactive. Okay. Under the Constitution, I think that's not possible.
How do you think that would impact, though?
You can give rights retroactively, but not. You can't create a crime retroactively.
Okay, you can't go back.
No.
How do you think something like that could impact the political landscape?
I don't think it's going to impact the political landscape at all unless somebody is willing to enforce it.
So that's our problem. Enforcement.
It's always the human element that's missing. The determination to do what is right. somebody once made a snide remark about me calling me a little philosopher.
I love the answer. I love the answer. Dame Joan Sawyer, we are going to take another break. We are at the midpoint or in the middle of our show, politics and thereafter thoughts of a straight shooter. If you are enjoying the show as much as I am, I invite you to stay tuned. We'll be back right after this.
Nobody likes corruption. But what do we mean when we say corruption? Only big crimes committed by guys in three-piece suits? Or is it every time we undermine a system to our own personal benefit? If corruption is skirting around the law, does it count if you tip a government official so you don't have to do things the normal way? Or what if you're using like tricks and loopholes so that you don't have to pay full price of customs? There are tons of things that seem small but make life harder for everyone, even if you don't see it right away. Luckily, no one likes corruption.
Brought to you by Citizens for a Better Bahamas.
It's a wealth of entertainment with a touch of class and sophistication. A journey of the senses with an unparalleled sense of style. Discover hidden adventures that are cradled in the palms of paradise. Traverse the annals of human history and explore the farthest reaches of exclusivity. It's an excursion that few can afford, but all should experience. And it's only on AWE.
Welcome back to On the Record. Our topic tonight is politics and thereafter thoughts of a straight shooter. We continue our discussions with my guest, Dame Joan Sawyer. We've, during the course of our discussion, really tackled a lot of, I call them vexing issues, things that have, plagued us as a nation, even prior to independence. Mm-hmm. One of those, one thing that continues to be a critical issue for us is this problem of immigration and illegal immigration. Mm-hmm. And there have been so many attempts, I guess, at doing something about it. This administration as well is attempting to do some things. But I want your view on really what has been, from your perspective, what have been some of the things that have contributed to this issue over the years and us not being able to get a grip on the problem and doing something about it? And it seems for all of our best efforts, it's just gotten worse.
I come back to the human equivalent in that, this human person in that equation. Let's say you have 9 illegal immigrants. One is hired by a highfalutin politician. Mm-hmm. They're all illegal, and so you get a minister like Loftus Roker, one of the men I admire for his straight shooting kind of thing. I'm not saying he's perfect. I don't know if he's perfect or not. That's for God to judge.
My producer has him referenced in our notes. I just want you to know that. The infamous immigration.
They call him infamous. When he was minister, the immigration was basically under control. Illegal immigration, because he called him Daddy Roker. Mm-hmm. And they feared him. Yeah. Because he didn't used to play. And he did take them to court before he deported them. So he followed the law, and he did what he had to do. But he was eventually stymied because in rounding up illegals, he's told, you could do all that, but not my illegal. And then he's no longer there as Minister of Immigration. I don't know what happened. I wasn't in that kind of milieu to know what was going on. But it is always the human element that defeats whatever plans you have. Because unless the majority of people in this country straighten up and decide to fly right, it isn't going to change. It's only going to get worse. Because you'll have men who want to marry foreign women so they can get maybe citizenship and get up and supposedly maintain them. You have women who want to marry foreign men because they are straight hair and they look good. And they want pretty children. And so on and so forth. And I don't know what the answer is. My answer is train up the child as much as you can, as soon as you can, and for as long as you can, to understand the importance of being respectful, respect who you are, respect other people. Do not break the law if you can help it.
But let's speak to the laws for a moment. And it, we would have gone through a second failed referendum on trying to bring some kind of reform to the laws. And
Child, the referendum? Did you read them so-called bills?
I did.
Ay, ay, ay.
What should we have done? And I know you've said this before, but really,
to me, if they wanted to bring a referendum, there are two things they should have done if they were talking about, they were being concerned about the children of married women born abroad to foreign husbands, right? They could have amended the Constitution to put in that and backdated to July 73, that these women should have been permitted to register their children's birth at the nearest Bahamian embassy or consul general, and then the child would automatically be Bahamian from birth. They would have dual nationality at birth. Or they could have said, well, we're going to amend it by completely wiping out that provision and saying that children of married women born abroad are Bahamian citizens from birth and dated back to 1973. Right? Didn't want to go whole hog. They were talking about starting in June 2016. That was how many years after independence? How many children were born?
Excluded so
many.
Yeah.
But also they have a provision in the Nationality Act, which has been there since 1973, which came into force on the same day as the Constitution, that says the minister may give citizenship to whomever he wishes, and he can't be called in question in any court, and blah, blah, blah. And they are Bahamian women who were married to non-Bahamian men who had to flee their husband's country and come home. And those children were registered under that, and they're Bahamian citizens. And some of the best citizens we have. And I'm not saying that was wrong. I'm saying they had the power to do right. This is why when they spoke to me, I said, you need a change of heart to get it right. But they don't want to do those things. With regard to the discrimination they're talking about, I said, under the law regarding marriage and stuff like that, that's a personal matter. The Constitution doesn't deal with that. It says these are accepted from these provisions. I have to have the right to discriminate who I should marry. I must have that right. The state can't tell me who I was married.
That's what I found offensive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you have people here who are non-Bahamians, who are Jews, who are Muslims, who are Bahamians. And they have their own religious laws which provide for their marriage and their divorce, separate from our statute, which is based on Judeo-Christian principles. Now, when you get rid of Judeo-Christian principles, we'll be back in slavery. Right? You accept that?
I'll let you talk. Wow.
You know, people, what I hated about that referendum was the way they were talking to the Bahamian public. I was offended to my soul. It was treating us as if we have nothing between these two ears. We can't think. And I told them, the man on the E Street jitney, he got common sense. He might not have a degree, but he has common sense. Treat him with respect, and then you won't be so stupid yourself. Stop treating us like we're not people. I hate that. You go look at me because I'm short and black and female and old, and you could think that I don't have sense. Try it, brother. Try it.
And I think a message was sent very loud and clear.
Yeah. They could easily have amended the Constitution to say marriage must only be between a male and a female. But if they did that, and they followed Judeo-Christian principles, would they then not be interfering with the Jews and the Muslims and the Hindus and the Shintos, the Buddhists and so on? They're entitled to their religious beliefs. Who are we to tell them no? Ay, ay, ay.
One of the issues that continues to cause us a lot of problems in this country, predominantly in the Haitian community, those children who are born in the Bahamas to Haitian parents.
Post 1973.
Right, and are not
registered,
and to them, even sometimes seemingly not even entitled
to be registered.
Yeah.
Well, what they are saying now, and this is why I told somebody, I think it was a Guardian, I'm Nahaja Black, I think I told them that I didn't agree with the amendments, the proposed amendments to the Immigration Act.
Why not?
to give the minister the power to do what the court's supposed to do. He'll be then a judge in his own cause. He's a part of as a minister, he's a part of the immigration board, which is the cabinet. And why is he going to be deciding who's gets
So what should happen? How do we deal with that? Because you have thousands of children born here. This is the only country they know. They are educated here. They are socialized here.
Would you say what we should do about them?
Yes.
What I told them last time, I was criticized at the bar discussion before the referendum because I said, what about them? I raised the question about them. They were pushing for the women whose children have citizenship in other countries. But these children are born here. The only country they know, some of them, is the Bahamas. As far as I'm concerned, we ought to take, it might be a hard decision, a decision one way or the other. Are we going to accept them as citizens, or are we not going to accept them as citizens? I know that a certain person brought in the permanent residency, or what they call it, belonger status, which was going back to pre-1973 state law.
Seems very antiquated.
Well, this is it. And that was for people, we had no citizenship before 1973. We were all citizens of the United Kingdom and colonies. And so that a Haitian child born here on say, the 9th of July, 1973, was automatically Bahamian on the 10th of July, 1973. Because he would have been a citizen of the United Kingdom colonies by birth. And so he would have transferred, just like me, into being a Bahamian citizen. But his brother, who would have been born after midnight, would not be. That makes sense to you?
No.
And then what has happened is, what is troubling me is, they're telling me that there are lots of young people who did not even apply, or if they apply, they can't find their application. That, to me, reeks, or the stench, seems to be corruption. Do you remember the headline the other day? Give me $3,000 and you could go free. I had an immigration officer come in court in a murder trial and tell me he was using an illegal, he's like one of the chiefs in immigration, using an illegal Haitian to weed his yard and do his work. He knew he was illegal, and he was using him. And he's making no effort to make him legal or to do anything about it. When he comes to give evidence, the fellow's charged with murder. Nice man, eh? Deputy Director of Immigration, as he was then. Then had another immigration officer in the case, one case, he said to have received some thousands of dollars, and when the drug pusher was coming in through the gate, he just pulled him on the side so he didn't have to go through any checking. He just got in the country just like that. This is what's killing the country. I was telling them on the bench, there's every reason to remember that our first motto as the Bahamians was, pirates expelled, trade restored. Unless you get rid of corruption and dishonesty in public and in the private sector in this country, you will not prosper. Your prosperity will be ephemeral. It will vanish. God doesn't bless wickedness. He will never bless it. And unless he blesses it, it won't last.
We are going to take our final break. We have more to discuss. On the Record continues right after this.
Are you coughing, sneezing, having headaches, respiratory issues, allergies, or itchy skin? Toxic mold may be the problem. Clear Solutions Plus can help. Certified best in the Bahamas, specializing in mold removal, water damage restoration, AC duct cleaning, and more. Call Clear Solutions Plus to schedule an inspection for your home or office at 677-3138 or 427-3138. Open 7 days at the Mount Royal Plaza. Clear Solutions Plus certified mold removal. Visit our website. We are your solution to indoor air pollution.
We are in our second season of On the Record, and we thank you, our viewing audience, for allowing us into your homes every Thursday at 8 p.m. We value your opinion and we want you to be a part of our discussions. So make sure you follow us on Facebook and Instagram and comment on our exciting topics. Remember, it's all on the record. And we are back on the record. This is our final segment of this episode. We've been discussing our topic, politics and the thereafter thoughts of a straight shooter with Dame Joan Sawyer. As we ended that segment, we were really into this discussion on immigration. And one of the things that always strikes me when we have these discussions and you hear a lot of the public feedback, particularly through the talk shows and even social media sometimes, because I think those avenues, unfortunately, bring out the worst in our people. But are we really a xenophobic people? And if so, how did we become so entrenched in that behavior?
I don't know. I can't speak for everybody, but the people I grew up with in Exuma were never xenophobic. Mm-hmm. They always practiced Christian hospitality to strangers. And they told us that that is a Christian virtue. And that is what actually got the Bahamas on the map as a tourist destination in the 40s and 50s. Because I remember tourists admiring us as government high school students. We were so well behaved and so mannerly. They used to come to school sometimes and tell Dr. Peggs how impressed they were with us. You know, these American tourists and stuff. So that this, I don't know how we got like this, except I will say that I saw the rot set in when we were heading towards independence. Because some Bahamians, immediately they heard we were going to get independence, they stopped standing up when the national anthem, God Save Our Gracious Queen, was played. And I said to them, but if you don't stand up for this one, you're not going to stand up for your own. Respect begets respect. If you don't practice honoring who is in charge now, why will you honor the one who succeeds? People don't understand. That's how human nature is. You know, I don't play games with respect. Give it, and you will receive it back.
I am always bewildered by the treatment sometimes and the things that we espouse on people who look like us. Not just the fact that they're from another country, but these are people who look like us and seemingly are our brothers and sisters.
But not only that, would you like to know how many of us are actually related to them by blood? You know, some of them came here earlier and they took on Bahamian English surnames. Mm-hmm. So can you tell which ones are which? For instance, Maynard is not a Bahamian surname. It's Barbadian. It's Bahamian now, isn't it? I don't think Wiltshire was originally Bahamian, but it is more than 4 generations.
But we have this almost, the Bahamas is only for Bahamians.
But who is a Bahamian? That's the question I ask. How do you, and this is why, again, I go back to Successful Walter Whitfield. He pointed out to us, and that's why I remember it so well. He said, he asked his children, when did you become a Bahamian citizen? And they said, by birth. And he said, oh, no, you didn't. You became a Bahamian citizen on 10th of July, 1973 because of this document. Because there was no Bahamian citizenship before that date. But we gloss over that fact and pretend that everything is all right. The other thing is, how many Bahamians would go around and weed your yard and do your donkey work?
Very, very few.
When the Haitians would be passing, seeing me weeding my yard, and they say, Mommy, you know Bahamian, right? Because we have decided that certain chores that must be done are beneath our dignity. We are too good for that. And so we want to use the Haitians and the newcomers. We want to treat them like slaves or non-humans. And then say, well, the Bahamas is only for Bahamians. Well, why should they accept that? Why should they accept that treatment?
One of the things that bothers me too is that we use this immigration as a tool of retribution. Whenever I don't like my English or Canadian boss or I have an issue, I call immigration and he gets deported.
Well, again, isn't that wickedness? Spiritual and human. Because you can't get rid of your boss otherwise. So you think, and didn't the Court of Appeal just say that they were wrong to do what they did in that case? One of the cases, for example. The person he may be a real racist, I don't know. But the point is, how do you treat people? If you treat them fairly, then it doesn't matter where they come from. Justice would be done. I used to tell the jury all the time, look, a human being has been killed. A human being is on trial for having caused his death. There's no room for prejudice in this court. A couple Haitians, murders came before me. And in every case, they were convicted. In a couple of cases, the Court of Appeal, of which I was not a member, overturned the conviction of one or more of the persons. On what grounds, I don't understand. I leave it like that.
Interesting. We are now into our fourth Prime Minister in an independent Bahamas. For the first time, not a lawyer, coming from a very different background, very different approach. What do you think are going to be or will continue to be some of the major challenges for a Prime Minister who has a seemingly very different view and very different way of doing things from some of his predecessors?
I think he can only do things the way he sees fit. That's the difficulty with human beings. We can only do as we see. And I pray God for his wisdom to be increased every day, his spirit of discernment to be increased. I pray for him to have the strength and the courage to do what is right no matter what. It doesn't mean that if he doesn't want it, he will get it. But I was relieved that there was no more longer a lawyer there.
Why?
Because some lawyers seem to think that they're the only people with intelligence. And they're only people who understand what the questions are and what the answers are. But yet, if you remove them from their milieu in politics and put them in a courtroom, some of them can hold their own, but others could not. But yet, they pontificate over other people. You get me?
Clearly.
I'm relieved that it is not a politician there, but I would hope that in time he will get acclimatized to the office and that he will be motivated to do what is right no matter what happens.
That's hard sometimes in office.
I know it is hard, but you have to do it. There was an English Prime Minister, John Peel, Sir Robert Peel, who only served one term as a Prime Minister, then he lost the next election and was out of power for a little while, but then he came back and he served 2 terms, consecutive terms, I think. But you know, he took the bull by the horns and he enacted, under his watch, they enacted a whole raft of legislation that were, I will call them precursors to human rights. The abolition of slavery, the getting rid of the rotten boroughs in England, 1 man, 1 vote, the women's, I'm not sure if he got the women's, Married Women's Property Act and things like that. A lot of changes came on his watch, and the independence of the police force and a professionally trained police force.
Dean Jones Sawyer, with that, we are ending our discussion. I just want to say how much I enjoyed our discussion here tonight. You certainly have given us some fantastic insight into the Bahamas today, but certainly what we need to do to begin to fix some of the things that plague us as a nation and, you know, have continued to plague us for decades. So thank you so very much. I encourage you to continue to speak because you speak wisdom and you say the things that we need to hear and that people need to be reminded of, and certainly with the values that you bring. And we thank you for that. We thank you for your service, and hopefully we'll get you back on again sometime soon. Well, thank you so very much. We hope certainly that you all have enjoyed our show tonight. Special thanks to our guest, Dame Joan Sawyer, my producer, technical staff, and of course you, the audience, for watching us each week. Be sure and join us for more On the Record next time, same place, same time. Once again, I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Thanks again.